We are live.
Welcome to Atlas Ag News presented by AgriFinancial, the best live ag news show on YouTube at 12:30 on Thursdays. One size fits all doesn't work in agriculture. That's why when you call AgriFinancial, you talk to a real person who understands ag and cares about your success. No automated machines, no cookie cutter loans, just custom financing solutions for land, equipment, building, and bins. Your farm isn't standard, and your financing shouldn't be either. Connect with AgriFinancial at cgb dot or cgb/agfi.com. All offers to lend are subject to approval. NMLS number 1472, Equal Housing Lender. The thoughts and opinions you'll hear today are our own and don't necessarily reflect those of AgriFinancial or their team. My name is Neil.
And I'm Clayton.
Josh Pretzer.
And we got Josh joining us today. Guys, we have a big week of news. First of all, special thanks to Josh being here. We thought Neil was going to be at a funeral. Neil was able to make it. So not only do we get Neil, we also get Josh. So we have Josh Pretzer, a.k.a. Josh Pretzel from Singular Agronomics here. He's a legend.
Never heard that.
You've never heard that in your entire life? That's a great joke. I almost put a pretzel emoji next to your name.
Of course, it's all I've heard for 33 years of my life. Heavier on the front half of life, but not so much in the latter half. But yeah, I've heard that plenty.
Well, that's because I have the comedy spectrum of a child. All right, we have another big week of news for us here at Atlas Ag News. We have a crop progress report as usual. Tractor Company quarterly reports are out, and we're going to compare those. Corteva officially has a brand name for their new seed company, and it's gotten a lot of pushback. Everyone kind of hates it. We'll talk about that later. And then we will also be interviewing Tommy Grisaffi from Ag Bull Trading and talking everything markets and grain. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great show. We're going to cover a lot right now, right here. So stay tuned. All right, USDA weekly crop progress report. LMA with DTN reports U.S. corn planting is ahead of its 5-year average, while soybean planting is ahead of both last year's pace and its 5-year average, according to USDA NASA's weekly crop progress report released on Monday. Cold air and weekend frosts and freezes may have affected crops and delayed planting, especially in the northern plains, while a major front is forecasted to produce widespread rain across the country. According to the DTN ag meteorologist John Baranek, corn planting progress is at 38%. Nationwide, equal to last year's pace and 4 points ahead of the 5-year pace. Tennessee was the first along at 87%, followed by Texas and Kentucky. Top producing states such as Iowa and Illinois have moved over 1/3 of the completion mark. Soybeans planting progress so far, estimated 33% of intended soybean acreage as of Sunday, 5 points ahead of last year. And then wheat itself, in terms of spring wheat, is getting pretty hard. Or winter wheat crop conditions are at an estimated 37% of it is all rated poor to very poor as of May 3rd. So that's up 19 percentage points from 18% a year ago. And then 49% of the winter wheat has headed nationwide as of Sunday. Neil, Josh, what do you guys see in your parts of the country?
Go ahead, Josh.
Corn, everybody's pretty much on track. Corn got in really well here in eastern Kansas. I'd say eastern. There's a lot of the states. So we're sitting right on the line. If you go anywhere west from here to the Rocky Mountains, it's severe drought. Really bad. Some of the worst they've seen in a long time. There are guys that are, if it's irrigated ground, they're planting. They can water it up. If it's dry land, guys have just parked it. I talked to a good friend of mine about an hour west of me. They put 600 acres of soybeans in and burned through a brand new set of opener blades. It's sandy country, don't get me wrong, but I mean, the ground is so hard, so dry. It's just, guys just quit. They're not planting anything until it rains. That's, I would be curious to know how many acres out there are not being planted right now, just strictly because there's no moisture. There's no forecast. They say end of May for the wheat belt. Western Nebraska, eastern Colorado, western Kansas the rain's supposed to kick on into this month, but guys are perfectly content not doing a thing out there until it does. Wheat crop, there isn't one. There is no irrigated wheat. I've heard a lot of 30s is yield estimates, and that's if it didn't get smoked by the freeze last night. Dry land, it's not there. So we'll see. We'll see if markets react that way. Probably not. They don't tend to follow a whole trend line of reality, but that's just my opinion. Kind of like Neil expressed at the beginning, is these opinions are only by us and ours only.
In
So,
Kentucky, we've had some beneficial rains about 2 or 3 days ago. The corn here in my particular area, corn and soybean planting is pretty well complete until double crop comes off. The wheat and canola here, I think the canola is pretty compromised by the frost. The wheat was hurting pretty bad with the dry weather, and I still feel like it's semi-compromised, won't be a full crop. It may surprise me. We do have cooler air, and generally when we have cool air in May, that will make for a good Kentucky wheat crop. But I think our shortage of moisture has probably hurt us at some level. I don't know what level that is. It's pretty hard to always with wheat. What I think is when I think it'll be fantastic, it's usually bad, and when I think it's bad, it's sometimes good. So you just never know. But I think in general, here in Kentucky, planting progress is at a record pace, just statewide. Most of the states not as far along as we are, but still at a record pace. And I would say, we'll be mostly complete statewide in a 2-week period.
Mm. Nice. All right. This show is brought to you by Agri Financial, your go-to for custom financing solutions. If you need land, equipment, buildings, or bins, check out their website or give them a call. Just a reminder that any opinions expressed in the shows are ours and do not necessarily reflect those of Agri Financial or their team. Virtual fencing goes fully off grid with Halter's satellite launch. Okay. A new development in virtual fencing technology could significantly expand where and how ranchers manage cattle. Halter announced the launch of a direct-to-satellite connectivity for its smart cattle collars, eliminating the need for cell towers or on-ranch infrastructure and allowing producers to manage livestock anywhere with a clear view of the sky. The Boulder, Colorado-based company is leveraging Starlink satellite technology to the power of the system, marking what it calls the world's first for pasture-based ranching. For beef producers operating in remote or rugged environments where connectivity has been a long limiting factor, the shift could open the door for broader adoption of virtual fencing. Connectivity has been the final barrier to bring virtual fencing across remote and expansive ranchers, said Greg Piggott, CEO and founder of Halter. Direct satellite allows ranchers to manage hundreds of thousands of acres in the most remote terrain on the planet. Combined with our new suite of product features, these ranchers can be even more productive. What do you guys think? This is the company that Peter Thiel, guy who helped found PayPal and Palantir and all those companies, put like $2 billion into. But I mean, this is probably evidence of that. But
personally, I'd like to know if this guy has ever seen a cow consistently be in a clear view of the sky. Because I've seen a lot of cows in some weird spots before. We're smack in the middle of ranch country. This technology is being used a little bit out here. Man, I'll tell you what, you want to take a good thing and destroy it, just send it into a cattle pasture. So we'll see.
What have you heard about it? Like the ranchers that are using it, has it been, do they like the technology?
They're happy with it. Yeah. Most of the guys around here are using it on rotational grazing. They're taking row crop acres, putting in cover crops, and really doing some cool stuff with that. It's kind of weird driving by and seeing cows with collars on them, but
do they still have to have a fence or no fence?
They've still got the fence. I haven't seen anybody send something out on a field yet that did not at least have a hot wire around it. Man, dude, we're farmers. We're slow to trust technology. So, we'll see. Do I think there's something to it? Yeah, I do.
But don't you think a part of the value of this technology is that it's not even the bolt, like, okay, imagine you fence off a section, just fence off, 640 acres, your 1 mile squares that you guys have all over Kansas. We have all over Iowa. Well, now this opens up the opportunity for that said cow herd to be managed even within those confines a lot more controlledly. Because I think what Halter is trying to do is they're trying to use AI to make an algorithm to help graze your cows of like, hey, like if you're going to do the intensive rotational grazing, like, well, now you can do that within the confines of a larger pasture, but be really intentional with where you're moving those cows throughout the pasture. And, you get out into the Mountain West. I mean, you live in Kansas, as soon as you start kind of going west in Kansas, you just get to these big, massive open spaces. And there is barbed wire fence out there, but it could
Yep.
be thousands of acres in one pasture, technically, just because, I've spent time out in the mountains in Nevada and everything. You're in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden there's just this barbed wire fence that goes for like 5 miles. You just like see it.
Mhm.
It's in the middle of nowhere. And so I think there's a lot of cool opportunities in that like mountain, BLM land area to use this to better manage cattle and hopefully better manage pastures and rangeland to get more out of it and be more productive. So yes, but I do agree, guys, you should be cautious with these because you know what? No matter how good you build a fence, a cow will figure out how to get out at some point. And probably the same will be true with all these collars.
It'd be nice for finding them when they do go rogue.
Exactly. 100%. So, no, I think it's cool to see multiple ag companies adopting Starlink in their business model because it's just like, I mean, you were telling me yesterday, Josh, that you guys have like you're on Starlink right now to stream this. Like, it has just totally revolutionized how we like interact with the world in agriculture because it's in the middle of nowhere half the time. And now no more cell towers, no RTK stations. Like Starlink is going to be on everything. And it's just, it's pretty cool to see this even with cows.
This show is brought to you by AgriFinancial, your go-to for custom farming solutions in the ag industry. If you need land, equipment, buildings, or bins, check out their website or give them a call. Just a reminder, any opinions on the show are ours and do not necessarily reflect those of AgriFinancial or their team.
Okay, so is 1,000 bushel corn possible? So this is an article from AgWeb from 60 to 600 bushels per acre. Is 1,000 bushel corn next? Record corn yields have risen 10x in the past 100 years. David Hula, who says continued genetic gains along with a deeper understanding of what's happening underground could push yield potential far beyond what most farmers expect. Scroll down a little bit of ways. While part of his crops remain unplanted, Hula is encouraged by what's already in the ground. Everything that we've planted so far, I feel good. Emergence has been spot on. Even their soybeans came up good. We waited till things were warm. With roughly 40% of his crop planted, Hula now watches the skies waiting for moisture before he continues. So the portion that you're waiting on moisture to be able to plant at this point, you don't feel like you have to sacrifice yield by waiting. You feel like you're protecting yield, we asked Hula. And he says, oftentimes growers think, well, it's too wet to plant or it's been too cold. They're the things that you want to wait for. Well, we still, because we're not late yet, we still want to make sure we get uniform emergent. That's the key to the first box every grower needs to be paying attention to. He says with sporadic pockets of moisture within dry soils, he says conditions are conducive for poor or uneven emergence. So now going on to his world record. Okay. That focus on emergence has paid off. Hula holds the world record for corn planting yield, producing more than 623 bushels per acre, a benchmark that underscores his disciplined approach. And he talks about he wasn't planting early. We were talking earlier about how in Kansas guys get their corn in before their soybeans. Well, Hula's all about planting his corn in May. End of April, first part of May, he says, but it seems like our highest yield stuff comes the later we plant. And that's, again, we're checking that box with the crop coming up uniformly. And he goes on to talk about the hybrid he's using. He's using the Pioneer P14, blah, 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 blah. Carries a legacy that stretches back a century. And he goes on to talk about how this corn hybrid specifically has continued, this like genetic line has continued to increase yield. And he just goes on to keep talking about how he doesn't think we've reached the genetic potential of corn yet. Like there is more genetic potential to be squeezed out of the corn crop. And so, Josh, I kind of want to hear you, is 1,000 bushel an acre yield possible? Do you think that's possible within the corn genetics we have now? So that's my first question. And then we'll get into, should we even bother growing 1,000 bushel corn anyways? Like, do we need more corn per acre?
I mean, everything that I guess at Singular stand for is raising a profitable crop, not necessarily the quantity of crop, focusing on that first. I mean, Dude, I love chasing yield. All of us love to see. I mean, it's fun cutting a big crop. It's very rewarding. It's something we work and very hard for. I'm curious if they've ever hit 1,000 bushel in a greenhouse setting, because I want to see them do it in a greenhouse setting
Mhm.
to establish kind of that bar of what is capable when all environments are can be manipulated. They can, water, nutrients, sunlight, temperature, everything. Control all can take all of mine and Neil's and yours now uncontrollables
Mhm.
and turn them into a controllable aspect. If you do that, I would love to see what they could grow in that environment. I talked to a lot of smart guys, some geneticists that think the 1,000 bushel is possible. Man, that's a long ways to go. that's a long ways to go.
It is a long ways to go, but if we were at 60 bushels 100 years ago and we're at 600 now,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what does that mean for us in the next, we talked a couple weeks ago about like you can now create digital twins of corn plants. So now you can speed up a lot of the research process because we can, through data and AI, simulate effects on a plant in a virtual setting versus having to wait the 12-month growing season, to actually
Yeah.
get that data back. So could we see in the next 30 years 1,000 bushel corn? I think in the next
Neil,
30 years we totally.
Neil, what do you think?
I think it's one of those things that, yes, like guys like Hula could probably achieve that yield plateau or that yield goal, but I think the average grower, couldn't even dream of those type of bushels,
No.
especially in the dryland environment.
Mhm.
And at some level, I'm like, what's the point? Like we're already oversupplying the market significantly. I think you hit the nail on the head where we as farmers should more focus on profitability and not just yield, And I think for so long, for so many years, so many farmers were focused on yield only and not profitability just because times were good. And then when we hit lean times, it's hard to change that mindset. And so, but I think, we've been in this downturn long enough that people have really began to take a hard look at everything that they're doing and saying, "Hey, this is needed, this isn't, where can I cut, and still grow a good crop?" And I think that's where we should have probably been focused on all along. So, leave the high yield guys to their, you know, let them do their thing, and then as just a farmer, focus on profitability and how to better your operation through other means.
So, we do
One,
remember that Josh runs an input company, so he does love more bushels because it means more money, right?
Neil runs. I mean, that's a farm, dude. That's a farm. More bushels means more money on the farm, or more possibility for. But yet you talk to and Neil's. I mean, all you guys, the three of us probably get to talk to a lot of different farmers in a lot of different spaces.
Mhm.
The common consistency of the profitable farms is not the biggest farms. It's the ones that focus on proper management from a business perspective,
Mhm.
not just can we shoot for the world's biggest yield.
Yep.
And that's now, and then you talk to those guys and they aren't necessarily interested in scaling that into a massive empire. It might be some. There are some that have done it very successfully. I know some, but you talk to just the successful farmers, and it seems like they have a common, and they're common in their intentionality of not necessarily being the biggest. They're growing in their intentionality of what they have now. At least that's a trend that's or something that's been spotlighted very much in the
Yeah.
last year, where guys are like, hey, as people are sharpening pencils, a lot of farms are forced to look at inefficiencies.
Mhm.
You do that and you start to really look at things and be like, wow, I didn't realize this. Neil and I have talked about this in the past a little bit, what acres are worth keeping and which ones, aren't.
Yeah.
It's definitely a topic that is hot in the ag industry right now.
Yeah, I think mastering the fundamentals is becoming much more hey, I think everyone's starting to acknowledge that as like probably because of, tighter margins, it's like, okay, well, all we can do is focus on the fundamentals because the variables that we can't control are so massive right now. There's just so many variables that are popping up every single week that people can't
Yeah.
control. So you only have one option: get good at business and get good at managing your crop with what you have. And like, if you can master those fundamentals versus I need more yield or I need more land, like I think there's a lot of profit that can still be captured by the farmer if you're focusing on things like that. So this show is brought to you by Agri Financial, your go-to for custom financing solutions in the agriculture industry. If you need land, equipment, buildings, or bins, check out their website or give them a call. Just a reminder that any of the opinions you hear on the show are ours and not necessarily those of the Agri Financial team or their management. Okay, Corteva has a brand new name for their temporarily titled SpinCo. So, Corteva brands seed and genetics business with a new name. The company had been using what is described as a placeholder name, SpinCo, since announcing it would split into two independent publicly traded entities last October. This article is by Rhonda Brooks at AgWeb. Corteva announced Monday that it advanced its seed and genetics business, formerly operating under the placeholder SpinCo, will be branded as Vylor. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Vylor Inc. The spinoff remains on track to become an independent company no later than the fourth quarter of 2026. Corteva will continue to sell crop protection products, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, and biologicals. For farmers who have spent decades planting Pioneer, Brevant, and Hogmeyer seeds, products, the changes marks a massive consolidation of research and development power. Vylor will launch with a significant intellectual property portfolio, including more than 4,000 germplasm patents and 2,000 biotechnology patents, according to a Corteva press release. They say the name Vylor is derived from valor, a tribute to the grit of U.S. farmers and workers who have helped feed the world. Even the new logo carries a hidden meaning. The stylized eye represents the shape of a single chromosome, the building block of the company's genetics first mission. The company's visual identity also honors its roots, using a color palette of green, maroon, and blue to pay homage to the Pioneer, Brevant, and Hogmeyer and Corteva legacies. What do we think?
Next.
Okay, let me see if I can share my screen real quick, because at least with you guys, I just think there's some interesting things to kind of cover when it comes to where's that screen one? Is that it? I just think it's interesting the knee-jerk reaction that I think people are having to this. I would like to note, I don't think they're not gonna kill any of these major brands. Just quick note there.
No. Way too much brand loyalty.
Way too
I
much
can't-
brand loyalty.
It just shocks me. Just to mess with the Pioneer logo or name to me is shocking. As popular as that seed has been and as much market share as they have nationwide, it seems like one of those. It almost seems like one of those. What was that Anheuser-Busch that made that terrible marketing play, and like crushed their company? I could see that happening here.
Yep.
Yeah, like just the Twitter conversation on this the past few days has been great. Yeah, I think people are overreacting to this. But a couple of the comments on the Twitter feed were just in general, hey, this is a little overblown. I agree with that. But a lot of them were like, some marketing company suckered Corteva into paying way too much money for a branding exercise. Okay, and look, I work in marketing. This logo on my hat was not cheap, but the process we went through was an enjoyable process, and it did make me feel really good. And I do love our logo, and I'm sure the Corteva team kind of had some of that, where it was like they found a marketing company to help rebrand this massive new publicly traded company, and they're like, let's spend $200,000 with a marketing firm to rebrand us. And yeah, you can tell they spent a lot of money. And yeah, Pioneer's not going away. Pioneer will be here, but the parent company, it's just like Corteva. Like, Corteva isn't really that great a name anyways. People care about Pioneer, but Corteva is just the umbrella corporation name. So do I think people are overreacting? Yes. Do I still think it's hilarious that this happened in the first place? Absolutely.
And right now,
Yes.
while people are planting, why now?
I don't know. I have no idea. I feel like they should have announced it when they should not have announced their like sub umbrella name like Spinco. They should have just been like, all right, by the way, it's going to be Vylor. They should have just waited, done that announcement. But they're probably working through some regulatory things when it comes to publicly traded companies. I'm sure that's a part of it. But yeah. Anyways, we have a new stupid brand name. No offense, Corteva. We did choose not to work with you this year for a reason. That's all. No comment. We also chose to work with some other large brands that also have some PR problems going on right now. So just so everyone knows, we're very fair in the people we say no to.
I mean, there's been these people that work for these, do I call sub companies under this brand that just got, I mean, is this right? They got notification that like as of Friday, they're unemployed. Like,
yeah, I did read some of the Twitter commentary that there was quite a handful of people who got axed. Because there was a I believe it was Seed Consultants. Technically, was like one of them.
Yeah, Seed Consultants was
many.
Dairyland, was that another one?
I think so. Basically, if you are not Pioneer or Hogmeyer or the other one, you're getting fired or you're getting assimilated into the large thing. I don't know about Ag Venture because I have a buddy who's an Ag Venture dealer, and Ag Venture, like, you're technically an independent company, but you license genetics off of Corteva. I don't know what's happening there, but I think they are going to roll up a bunch of companies, which Bayer also did that a year or two ago, where they like rolled up a bunch of the smaller brands into the DeKalb and the Channel brands and are keeping those, but then got rid of all the smaller ones. So I mean, there's only like 3 genetics in the entire industry. Like, it's not like it's the end of the world. It's just, who's your dealer?
Have you been following that guy on Twitter that has been requesting seed tags? People send him seed tags from the different companies or whatever, this and that, brands, seed hybrids. And he's built a database that shows which ones based off, because it's their, pretty much it's their code. He's taking the codes and using AI to see which ones are duplicates under a different name.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'll try to find that. I'll try to find that and send it to you, Neil. But he just put it on Twitter and he got like I want to say 130 different seed tags from different farmers. And he started to put this database
USDA
in.
Guy. That guy's a felon.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Because I talked to our company agronomist and he's like, yeah, dude, I'm following this one close.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it doesn't surprise. Like, I'm glad that's being done. I tried looking up, can't find anything. But defund the USDA guy, he's got his own like. I'm not gonna give him time. He's got his like whole red line hybrids thing. Yeah. But yeah, like literally all the genetics are from what, 2 or 3 companies.
It's just white labeling.
Yeah, it's all just white labeling. So, all right. Just reminder.
This show is brought to you by AgriFinancial, your go-to for custom financing solutions in the ag industry. If you need land, equipment, buildings, or bins, check out their website or give them a call. Just a reminder, any opinions on the show are ours and do not necessarily reflect those of AgriFinancial or their team.
Okay. AGCO and CNH reported their third quarter earnings. CNH reported Q1 revenue of $3.8 billion, flat year over year, with an industrial rated EBITDA loss of $45 million, with an adjusted earnings per share of just 1 cent, and a $69 million industrial free cash flow outflow. The agricultural segment showed regional divergence up, while North America and South America were down, and profitability weakened among agriculture's adjusted EBITDA margins. Bunch of boring Wall Street speak. Changes to tariff application materially raised costs. CNH expects roughly a 200 to 210 BPS drag on ag margins and a 600 BPS on construction. While the company is keeping production deliberately low to reduce dealer inventories, says Q2 order books are full and expects sequential margin improvement in the second half of 2026. AGCO, agriculture and machinery farm machinery company, AGCO reported Q1 of 2026 results exceeding the market's revenue expectations, with sales up 14.3% year on year to $2.34 billion. The company's full year revenue guidance of $10.6 billion at the midpoint came in 0.6% above analyst estimates, and a GAAP profit of 76% per share was 91.2% above analyst consensus. This quarter, AGCO reported year-on-year revenue growth of 14%. Yeah. So Case is struggling. I know you're a Case guy, Josh, so I'm sorry.
My stuff's working.
That's what matters. That's what matters. I had this graph done up for me by AI the other day, and I thought we could kind of just go over it a little. I think it is interesting if we look at this graph here. Share my screen. Quarterly revenue. So basically what we're looking at here, just overall revenue. Deere is on top. Obviously, with the highest revenue amount, we have to remember Deere owns 60% of the US market, as well as has a massive construction division. Dollars, dollar signs, profit dollars. This is an interesting one. Deere is so much more profitable than everyone else. Like, just this graph right here just very clearly portrays how profitable John Deere is, which I would like to know, why do you guys think John Deere's profit margins are so high?
I think you can point it right at technology. I think it just is technology. They have restructured their company to just be, writing software and charging subscription fees just at the right time.
Hmm.
So, I think they also scaled back on new equipment manufacturing, laid people off, all those type of things to weather this storm, and then have, kind of really leaned in hard to the technology aspect where they can write the software
Mm.
and then just earn money based off that software, write it once and then just continually milk it. And I think that's why you see them so profitable.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that statement. I would like to know, and I don't know how you, when you get to that high level Wall Street, like how the share earnings per share looks. CNH's as a whole earnings per share is almost zero. Like, it's 1 cent on the dollar, compared to Agco at 76 cents per share, and then John Deere's also in the $2 to $3 range, which I do think that's interesting. It makes me, I don't want to say I'm worried for Case, but the CNH team, every single year we go to a trade show and CNH's booth is always the most average. I say that in the kindest way possible. It's just like, I'm worried that CNH's innovation pipeline and their ability to hold market share is entirely dependent on their legacy right now. I think Agco is pushing pretty hard into trying to take American market share from John Deere. I think that's very clear. I think their acquisition of Precision Planting and Trimble is very clearly a play, is like, we're going to be a technology player just like John Deere. And I think Case is trying to do that, but they're not able to, they haven't gotten some of that traction that Agco has, being kind of this outsider European company coming in, trying to like really innovate in the market.
Sure.
But I want, like, I agree. Tractors need to work, and that is the biggest thing. Tractors should just work. But I look at the long term. I'm like, where is CNH's place in the agriculture economy if things do not trend upwards for them?
I do feel like they have, they have noticed that they've lagged back on their software, and I think they have doubled down on it. And I think I think it's a good enough company that they will rebound from it. It's just going to take them a little time. I mean, those type of, that type of technology that Deere has been working on for 20 years doesn't get built overnight. So Case will be able to, maybe not catch back up, but in the next couple of years. But I think at some point they will, and it's just going to take a little time.
If they can keep building, I mean, Case right now, I would say in the Case world, you ask guys what's the two most reliable things in the Case world. It's Case combine, flagship combine, and quad track.
Yeah.
That's the two things that are consistently good.
And I'll give it to them. I mean, if I'd still say Case's combine reputation is better than Deere's or Agco's, and I would say also the quad track. Like, Deere has a quad track, but everyone knows, like, the quad track is the quad track. Like,
It's Case.
Everyone can all agree. High horsepower 4-track machines, Case probably still makes the best one, and they did innovate in that market long before anyone else did. Deere very clearly looked at it and said, we have to make one of those, because they're onto something there. So
Yep.
So, all right.
This show is brought to you by AgriFinancial, your go-to for custom financing solutions in the ag industry. If you need land, equipment, buildings, or bins, check out their website or give them a call. Just a reminder, any opinions on the show are ours and do not necessarily reflect those by AgriFinancial or their team.
Got it. American farmers shun USDA surveys as trust in data erodes. This is the part Josh has been waiting for. I don't know if you guys can get access to the article because it is on Bloomberg and it does make you usually pay for it. I shared my screen with you, but I think this is something that is very relevant because we rely on USDA data a lot as an industry, and all of us are kind of on the we don't really trust it anymore. So I'm just going to read this. American farmers are ignoring the USDA's surveys and the latest sign of distrust in government data. Reply rates for USDA's annual prospective planting report sank in March to a record low, with just over a third of 73,800 farm operations surveyed answered the questions on the acres they will plant this spring, of everything from corn and soybeans to tobaccos and chickpeas. That compares with about 60% of farmers responding in 2018, with replies declining in each year since, according to government records. Farmers say they are wary of sharing data to inform reports they feel often work against them, especially with abundant harvests in recent years, keeping crop prices under pressure. The mounting skepticism comes as the USDA is looking to become more responsive to farmers through transformation that relies heavily on shared data. It also echoes broader loss of trust in government data, particularly as President Trump has called into question federal statistics and information. The USDA posted some stuff on Twitter. Iowa farmer Ben Rice says the agency's various surveys are too arduous and the markets often slump after corresponding reports are released, affecting what they get paid for crops. I don't trust the data. I don't trust the process. I don't trust their people, Ranch said, and they monkey with my business. The trend may present complications for Trump's efforts to court farmers, a key voting bloc for him and the Republican Party. Intelligence from the farm is the lifeblood of the USDA's reports and resulting in findings and forecasts that influence the direction. But distrust of the USDA's conclusions is creating a vicious cycle. A case and point is January's crop reports from the USDA, which surprised the market when the agency unexpectedly boosted its estimate for U.S. corn crop by 1.6% to a record 17.021 billion bushels. Most have been anticipating a slight downward revision from the USDA's previous forecast, and futures in Chicago subsequently posted their biggest daily decline in years. That sounds tough.
Just a reminder, any opinions on this show are ours and not necessarily reflective of AgriFinance. I'm going to comment on that with something I circled on our last conversation that I think actually ties in with this. Mm-hmm. That article about CNH saying that says reduced dealer inventory says Q2 order books are full and expect subsequent margin improvements. Mm-hmm. Neil, do you believe that?
You know, I have trouble believing that there's a lot of new equipment purchasing going on. I do think people are looking really hard at the used market as it continues to trend upward. And if they were holding off, like hoping that used equipment would continue to erode, they're seeing that it's starting to trend back. And if they were holding off buying, waiting on more erosion, they're trying to buy. But I have a lot of trouble believing that you have a lot of new equipment purchase happening.
Yeah, the books are full.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
No, I think that right there across this entire, I mean, they probably need to say that to help their shareholders be a little more comfortable. Yeah, shareholder confidence. Which yeah.
So what do we think of the USDA?
But I think, right. I mean, I think that's just ag in general. I mean, ag, it's this persona that, and especially even when we feed into something, I mean, we feed in the data that we're willing to share with the USDA. And then how many farmers last year looked at everything that reports and this and that was coming out and going, this is not accurate. This is not true. This is not a clear representation of what is actually going on. So why on earth would I spend time telling these people anything?
Yeah, I think we were talking about an article. I don't know. It probably was 4 weeks ago now, where like I think on record, it was the lowest farmer participation rate in reporting that they had ever recorded.
Mm.
And I think that's just indications that, I think from the time COVID happened till now, you've seen significant uh, trust erosion from all citizens in
Mm.
government entities. And I don't think, I think farmers are semi distrusting anyway, just because of their nature. And so from the time COVID happened until now, uh, all citizens have eroded trust, and
Mm.
farmer, I think, significantly more than the average citizen. And so you just see more indications of this where, they feel jaded by what they feel is, like skewed information coming out from the government. And because of that, they're reaping the consequences of even if they are, doing their best of their ability to be accurate, people still don't
Mm.
trust them,
Yep.
and so reaping the consequences of the actions of COVID, I feel like.
One of our followers said, but they'll still cash that federal check whenever it comes in the mail. The
I've
USD
always said that, they are reaping our data. So at some point, they should have to. Data is worth money. So
Mhm.
to that viewer that's saying we're cashing those federal checks, well, they are taking our data and manipulating the market with it. So
Yeah.
at some level, that data is very valuable, especially to the market traders. So they're paying us for our data. I don't
Oh,
feel
I
bad
think that's
cashing their checks.
I think that's probably just as much the reason for distrust. It's not that I think we can all like not everyone in the government is corrupt. Does it lead that way one day? Yes. But not everyone in the government is corrupt. Are they incompetent? Probably not. Are they disorganized and inefficient? Absolutely. And so the problem comes though is that it's not that we all know that. We can probably all agree on that statement. People just don't like when that report drops that it fluctuates your plan. So if you have a marketing plan, if you have a plan for selling your grain, that you are roughly basing it off of whatever the USDA is going to say and how that's going to swing the markets. When the USDA data skews one way you don't like, it's going to throw the markets probably another way you don't like. And it just creates this distrust in the USDA because it's like, I had a marketing plan. And because you changed your prospective planting, estimates or how much corn is going to be grown this year, like it just throws everything off. And so I think that's probably the biggest frustration. It's like we don't have any more variables that we want to give up. And the fact that one of those variables is one you participate in by giving your data to the USDA and then it negatively affects you, it's just frustrating. So you're like, well, if I just don't contribute to the report, at least it's not my fault, you know? So yeah. Okay. Remember, this show is brought to you by Agri Financial, your go to for custom financing solutions in the ag industry. If you need land, equipment, buildings, or bins, check out their website or give them a call. Just a reminder, all these opinions that we have are ours and not those of the Agri Financial team. Okay. The future of glyphosate may rest with innovators and not lawyers. The lawsuits for Roundup have been in the news a lot, and I think this article is worth talking about. It's not exactly newsworthy, but I do think it is a great point from an agriculture industry journalist perspective. So this is from the Ag Funders Network, so ag tech, ag venture capitalism, all that stuff. Basically, they're gonna break down for us why glyphosate is still so relied on. And it's because of a lack of innovation. And I actually do think I agree with that statement. So, since the International Agency for Research on Cancer classified glyphosate as a probable carcinogen in 2015, Bayer has faced more than 100,000 lawsuits claiming that Roundup should have carried a cancer warning. Most major pesticide regulators around the world, including the EPA, have concluded that glyphosate is unlikely to cause cancer when used as directed. But some juries have sided with plaintiffs, and Bayer has already paid roughly $11 billion to settle Roundup claims. We talked last week; these went to the Supreme Court, and then there's a bunch of things that are going to come with that. The litigation and what may happen. They say that possibility should worry anyone who cares about making agriculture more sustainable. Glyphosate may not be harmless, and farmers should not depend on it indefinitely. Agree. but it is one of the most effective and inexpensive and low impact herbicides available. Pushing farmers away from it before better tools are ready would be not make farming safer or more environmentally friendly. It would likely mean more tillage and more use of herbicides. The path beyond glyphosate should run through better weed control technology and not abrupt restriction or removal from the market. Precision sprayers, AI powered weeders, alternative chemistries, biologicals, and other innovations can all reduce dependence on glyphosate, but they need to outperform it on a cost effectiveness and toxicity and environmental sustainability. Goes on to say, like, hey, here's all the studies about how it's not actually killing everyone, it's actually environmentally friendly. Merits can be debated there. And their big thing is the hey, it is good, it's better for the environment than a lot of other weed control methods. Our modern weed control methods outside of glyphosate are paraquat, which isn't anyone's favorite, or lots of tillage, which, if you're on the environmental side, big deal. None of this is to say that glyphosate is knocking us. It's designed to kill a wide range of plants so it can impact vegetation that wildlife depend on. Glyphosate use and herbicide tolerant cropping systems may have contributed to the decline of milkweed in farm landscapes, harming monarch butterfly habitat, according to several studies. Some destroy aquatic species a little more. It goes on to say the goal should be how to make glyphosate and other herbicides less necessary while preserving the benefits they provide. That is where ag tech matters. Goes on to say we need better precision technology, we need better chemical biology, and new chemistries that are going to actually be better for the environment but still kill weeds. So I thought that was a very good take on it. Highly recommend you guys look that up on the Ag Funder Network website, purely because it is a good take. You can't just ban it outright. It would cause a lot of chaos. You could ban it outright and we could all just live with the chaos and figure it out anyways. But it does make a great point is we don't have the innovation. We probably aren't focusing enough on innovation to really solve that problem yet. Like on the farm level, there is no better alternative to kill weeds other than Roundup. It is cost effective, it works, and it's the problem I will also say is it's stopping to work. So what innovations are going to come forward that aren't just more heavy and intense chemical use? What does innovation look like to solve this problem? What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Josh.
Something that keeps coming back in my mind as I think about this. I mean, I don't know very many farmers that enjoy applying a herbicide to a field, like it makes them feel good.
Mhm.
I don't know anyone that spends excess money to apply a herbicide to a field because they want to. We would all love to reduce one, it's an input cost. It's a huge herbicide is a huge input cost on operations.
Mhm.
The other one is people don't want farmers to use any herbicides, but they want cheap food. So, the technology and methods to create, cleaner food. I mean, I've got a friend that's looking at robotics and things for, weed termination. Well, the problem is he can't scale that to large scale at this time, and his cost to get into it is so high. He's like, why would I invest in that right now when I
Mhm.
can just, this is an easier, quicker option.
Mhm.
Now there are people obviously pursuing these avenues and being successful at it, but it's a matter of scalability. How do you get, was it 93 million acres of tillable ground in the United States? So, don't quote me on that. I want to say it's 93 million. But
Yes.
how do you even convert a fraction of that, in a scalable manner? And people go, what if we went organic today? Just all farmers doing organic? We'd have starvation. We would have there, it would be, I don't know what the reduction would be, plus the legal ramifications and process to enter that market,
Yeah.
because it is a lengthy process.
Not to mention
But
the probably soil, the answer to weeds for most organic growers is tillage, that even
yes,
guys who love tillage are like, that's a lot of tillage. Like the amount
yeah,
of the amount of other consequences that come with organic growing. It's not just this like perfect thing. And same with the
correct.
regenerative side of things. The regenerative crowd's always like, well, we can do this, we can do this. Well, most sane regenerative guys are like, yeah, I also have to spray Roundup sometimes because you know what? It's the best way to take care of weeds. Like, no matter, go back to the fall of humanity. Part of the curse is you're just gonna have to deal with that. Weeds are a part of it, and we'll replace all of, imagine we replace everything with laser weeders one day. Imagine the cost comes down to $50,000 to throw a laser weeder on your tractor. Okay, cool. Well, you know what? Glyphosate resistance is a real thing. It's a real problem. Everyone knows it is not as effective as it used to be. You have to spray more to kill things, or you have to switch to a different chemical to kill things that are now becoming, resistant to Roundup. Well, you think the weeds aren't going to figure out how to be more heat resistant and fight off lasers? They'll figure it out. They're weeds. That's their job, is to keep growing and to spread. So this whole idea that there's this perfect solution, we got to like take out of our brain. There's no perfect solution. Now it's a question of how do we slowly shift our systems to be more conducive to less Roundup or glyphosate. Not without, don't ban it overnight, but this article is trying to highlight we need a better system. We need a better option and innovation. And the system in agriculture supports continued use of Roundup just because it's the easiest and most cost effective. And farmers will do what is the most cost effective. That is what will happen. So all this technology has to be brought down in price through early adopters and innovation and funding and things like that. But to think we'll just legislate it out of existence, I mean, would it be kind of cool if that happened? I kind of live for the chaos, but I don't think it would be very good for a lot of people.
I mean, the last step to government overthrow and anarchy would probably be giving farmers a 3-point mounted laser system. That's kind of the last step. It's that only terrifying to many degrees.
Here's my proposal. So how we have a massive military industrial complex and a several $1 trillion military budget every year? What if we merge the USDA and the Department of Defense and just fund lasers? Like, let's just spend a bunch of money on lasers, and we'll just combine the USDA and the Department of Defense, so that way we're using lasers for war and for weeds, and we can just kind of like, it's like Doge, but like more, let's just innovate in the laser department for both the military and agriculture. Someone get on the phone. I think we're on to something here.
I was going to say a lot of the agricultural industry was started in the war industry, so that would kind of fit seamlessly.
It would. I mean, every big chemical company made a lot of chemical weapons in the wars, and so really is the next big step is lasers for war, lasers for weeds. It's a pretty easy parallel.
Yeah, time of peace, you watch the shift of agriculture just flood the market.
All right.
I think we're in the weeds.
Yeah,
right. We are. That's the problem.
We are in the
lasers.
weeds.
We need lasers. We are in the weeds. There's too many weeds. We got to get out of them with more lasers. Okay. This show is brought to you by AgriFinancial, your go-to for custom financing solutions in the ag industry. If you need land, equipment, buildings, or bins, check out their website or give them a call. Just a reminder, any opinions on the show are ours and do not necessarily reflect those of the AgriFinancial team. We're going to skip the ultra-processed food lawsuit. We could talk about that for a long time. Another one when we're talking about conservation. Ted Turner dies, leaving a legacy of large land holdings. Yeah, Ted Turner died, I think, yesterday or Tuesday.
I did not know that.
Ted Turner might be closely associated with Atlanta, but the mouth of the South carved out a legacy far different, thousands of miles removed from urban boardrooms as a steward of American land. Turner, who died Wednesday at age 87, owned 2 million acres spanning the Southeast, Great Plains, and the West, making him the fourth largest landowner in the U.S., according to Land Report. Turner's holdings comprise mostly of large, continuous tracts and are managed with the aim of making them both economically viable, keyword there, and ecologically sustainable. Ted Turner was a pioneer as a corporate titan who plowed his profits into land, said Eric O'Keefer, editor of the Land Report. Many of his properties in Montana, New Mexico, and Nebraska double as businesses, either running livestock or operating luxury resorts or offering access to hunting and fishing. Ted Turner's land management company, Turner Enterprise, oversees more than 45,000 bison across his various ranches and the largest private herd in the world, according to the company website. His enthusiasm for the native animal helped revive the once threatened species by creating a market for its meat, which he sold at retail through a chain of burger restaurants, Ted Montana's Grill. He just goes on to talk about all those things because large landholder, and he has protected a lot of this land with conservation easements and agreements that permanently restrict commercial development and subdivision. So, yeah, it's kind of sad. I think it's interesting for us to look over this purely because I lived in Montana for a while. Ted Turner actually gets a bad reputation because he bought up a lot of land. He's the rich guy who comes in and buys the big ranch. No one likes that guy. Like, that's the villain in half the stories. But in reality, I've also read quite a bit on bison and bison reintroduction. I have a pretty good base knowledge of that. I think this is pretty cool. I mean, we don't, he's obviously, more of the climate guy, more of a Californian, per se, but he is trying to make these profitable ranches and also reintroduce bison and be ecologically conscious and economically conscious. and he's preserving farmland and ranch land. Like, should agriculture people be against this, or should we be for this? Because I think it's a pretty cool story. It's kind of sad he died, but I think it's interesting. How do we feel about rich people buying land and doing something useful with it?
You know, I've never respected Ted Turner and his political views, but I do respect his ability to, um, you know, his land holdings were impressive, and I always liked the fact that he wasn't going to develop them. He, you know, made sure that uh, the ranchers that had worked the land had the opportunity to continue to work it, even though it was for him. And that you know, you know, he made sure that they weren't going to be developed into subdivisions, and I think that's worth something, you know, at the end of the day. So I did respect that out of him.
Any thoughts, Josh?
Not really. I didn't know he passed away. I mean, he left a heck of a. I mean, I think he spent a lot of his life doing what he wanted to do, you know, and he was obviously passionate about it. I know some people that knew him, worked for him. You know, and the consistency is that he was passionate about his beliefs in, you know, the reintroduction of bison and just preserving habitat.
Yeah. Well, I think finding a market for bison too is pretty cool. And I just, you know, I'm pretty passionate about bison just from living in Montana for a long time and seeing what cool animals there are. I'm also all for cows, but I think there is something to be said of like, we can all agree ruminants on the land is a good thing. We haven't talked about it on the show yet, but Neil bought some cows last week, just out of the blue. You know, great time to get into cattle, right? All-time market highs. And what does Neil decide to do? He goes he buys bred cows. Bred cows.
We bought cows yesterday too,
guys.
Hey, we're at
you guys know how that
all-time
stock
low.
We're at
we
are
should
farmers.
buy that right now, and you know, then see it go down. You know, like the AI bubble's going to burst. Dude. Let's put a bunch of money in now.
Hey, I'm a degenerate.
Farmers are degenerate gamblers, and all you see when cows go up is that they'll keep going up. But you should have learned your lesson that when the crop prices and everything's super high, it will go down at some point. Maybe you should wait to buy.
We actually had to cull. We had to cull a few more cows than we planned this year, and we were short on filling some of our grass. So we kind of had a reason. Instead of downsizing grass, we just bought more cows. You know, that kind of made sense.
I just think I love cows. I love cows for sure. Looking at prices right now, I'm just like, Neil specifically, Josh, you have a reason. You live in Kansas. I have seen like 3 cows ever where Neil lives, ever. Like, it's not a big cattle state anymore. And you know what he said?
He's a pioneer.
I have a few acres that I need to graze, so he bought the most.
He's a pioneer in the industry, man.
Hold on, just on my end of the state. So if you go east of the Tennessee River, we are the largest cattle herd. Actually, east of Ohio, but we're the largest cattle herd east of the Mississippi. But all of our cows in Kentucky are east of the Tennessee River. Mostly here in the western part of the state, we don't have a lot of cows, but we do have a pasture that needed cows. So this show is brought to you by AgriFinancial, your go-to for custom financial solutions in the ag industry. If you need land, equipment, buildings, or bins, check out their website or give them a call. Just a reminder, any opinions on the show are ours and do not necessarily reflect those of AgriFinancial or their team.
And just to be clear, this is completely sarcasm, but I do think it's funny. Neil had to finance this cow herd with AgriFinancial because of how expensive it was. Actually, so just to be clear, I don't know if AgriFinancial works with any sort of livestock lending. Disclaimer: this is a complete joke. I'm just trying to plug our sponsor. So I think this is a great moment for us to transition to someone who actually knows some things about markets. So Neil, why don't you get ready to introduce our guest for this week?
Okay, so we got a guest. I'm super excited to have him. We've got Tommy Grisaffi. He's maybe currently in Nashville or maybe at his home in Chicago, but Tommy's a broker. If you want to find him on social media, it's at AgBull. You probably also seen him on RFD TV. fantastic personality. We're super excited to have you, Tommy. Thanks for joining us.
How we doing, my friends?
Fantastic.
We're talking about how Neil just bought a bunch of cattle
I
at
was
all-time
listening. I
market
was
highs.
giggling.
So
Yeah, he showed them, huh? He showed them. Well, I thought that's been a bad idea for 2-3 years, and it keeps working. And we'll it'll work till it won't work, right? And then
That's
we'll know.
right.
Then we'll know.
So,
All
what's
right.
your thoughts
Yeah.
on today, on just the market action we've seen in the last couple of days?
Well, couple days would be all right. Let's take it like real big picture. Last couple days, in couple weeks, the stock market's been rallying and making new highs every day. So whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, whether you like America or don't like America, whether you believe anything you see on TV, the Dow Jones, the S&P, the Nasdaq, the Russell, anything
Mm.
that's breathing a live stock hit all-time highs. Not every single stock, but as indices, they've hit highs. Trust me, I've been selling them some days and losing. Today was a good day. I sold them, but I only sold the stock market today because crude oil rallied $7-8 off the high, which brings me to my point. What is the stock market telling us? The stock market's walking right through all this crude oil stuff like cold trickle going around in days of thunder. Remember when he told them just drive through it? Well, that's what the stock market's doing. And the stock market's a heck of a lot smarter than other markets because you're not talking about 15 billion bushels of corn times $4 or $5. You're talking about the whole United States wealth of any publicly traded company. And that's doing okay. With that, you've seen risk on and risk off. When the crude oil shoots up, you see risk off. That might look, well, it looks like stocks going down, bond market doing things and everything else. And what are we going to be left with when the dust settles? And I do believe the dust will settle. We're going to be left with some inflation, and for farmers, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. We have inflation. The 30-year bond just hit multi-year highs. So if you look at the yield curve, which I used to trade bonds at the Board of Trade, you have your 30s, 10s, 5s, 2s, T-bills, all that other stuff. But interest rates have actually went up the last few months to a point where if someone was house shopping, it could be definitely affecting their their purchase price, right? Can you afford a $500,000 house? Nope. You got to go down to 450. So when interest rates are low, people can buy a big house, or you can buy a big tractor, or you can buy a big chunk of land. As interest rates go up, you can still buy it, you just can't buy as much.
Mm.
And that's definitely going to continue to be the thorn in agriculture side is interest rates. And it's not something people talk about a lot. When I was on RFD interviewing people, I knew there were certain people, they're like, do not bring up stocks and interest rates. They were experts at corn, beans, wheat, cattle, everything ag, but they didn't understand the first thing. If you asked them where their mortgage was, they probably wouldn't know what percent their mortgage was at. But interest rates are simple to explain. You're either paying interest or you're receiving interest. Most of us are paying, and that paying prices went up tremendously for so many of us, especially if you have a flex mortgage. All you in agriculture or yourself buying those cattle, you need to do well on those cattle because if you don't, you're going to your loss in interest is going to be so much greater. So from 2013 to say 2021, every $1 million you borrowed as a farmer, you paid back $30,000 to $40,000 in interest, and now that's closer to 60, 70, $80,000. So a farm who was just trying to make $200,000 profit may now be spending all that in just interest costs. Not to mention the cost of productions went up. So my thoughts on markets, whether it be grains, cattle, or anything else, is that crude oil will calm down, but we are going to be left with an inflation hangover, and that's going to come from that long tail of the disruption of fertilizer. That could have been the longest winded answer ever, but I don't know when you want me to stop talking. So
So Tommy, give me just okay. So, Neil is much more in tune with markets than I am. I'm in tune with the stock market more than I am the commodity market. First of all, zoom out. Give me a 30-second. Who are you? How did you get to where you're sitting right now? And then tell me, if you're listening to this I know a little bit about marketing. I know a little bit about grain. What are signals you're always watching for, or what are you seeing in the market right now that makes you think, I should keep an eye on things like that? Like, what makes you just like piques your interest and says that's something I need to watch? You kind of talked about bonds and the general stock market there and crude oil. Like,
mhm.
boil it down for those of us who are not good at it.
Well, um, I love trading grains, and to go back to my history, I went to the Board of Trade when I was 17 years old on a high school field trip. I'm now 53, so I'm trying to do the math, but that was a long time ago. That was 1989, 1990. Probably you guys weren't born, but I went down to the Board of Trade on a high school field trip, and I liked it so much I stayed and I took night classes in college, and then I worked hard, saved money, and you don't always have to buy a seat on the exchange. You can lease one. So you have to be 21 to be a member of the exchange. But literally, I had all the paperwork done when I turned 21. I became a member of the exchange, and a few years later, I bought a membership, a seat. And what that seat allows people to do, it allows you to trade a high volume amount of contracts at a very low price. So look at it like it's a country club. Everyone's allowed to join, but I play golf for a heck of a lot cheaper around than you do. Okay.
Mm.
That's where the Board of Trade seats and everything else. As far as where am I sitting, I'm actually standing in Valparaiso, Indiana, which is about an hour from Chicago. We're the state that allows you to carry guns, and we encourage that, right? So we don't want any of that riffraff from any of those states around us. But state of Indiana, I tell you, it's booming. You know, you go up that I-65 corridor, there's stuff being built left, right, everything else. State of Indiana has its act together. So does Iowa, and so do other states. Anyway, state of Illinois, not so much. Could be the most corrupt damn thing I've ever seen in the history of the world. Okay, and all
Remember,
the farmers,
these opinions are not reflected by our sponsors. These are all our own.
the sponsors would agree. I mean, the listen, the farmers in Illinois, they're the best in the world. And if they could move their land, they would do it. And you always see people, you ever see when people draw these maps of where they merge Illinois and Iowa together, or you'll see parts of Canada merge with North Dakota. I mean,
Yeah.
the reason people in farming and agriculture get so mad at the politics is that the farmers who are working so hard, who've spent hundreds of years to build this generational wealth, are being asked to just hand over their money because they're wealthy, no different than Seattle or New York or anything else. So the farmers have a right to have an opinion, and so do I. But to your point, these are not the opinions of our sponsors. They're my opinion. And I think that's why you had me on. Anyway, moving forward. So I'm here in Valparaiso, Indiana, and I commute from Valparaiso, Indiana. I have an office and a studio in Mayville, North Dakota. For you home gamers who don't know where that is, it's directly in between Fargo and Grand Forks. I have an office at a bank, so I get to sit next to bankers all day. About 1 week a month, I spend up there. I spend about 1 to 2 weeks a month in Nashville, and then I spend 1 to 2 weeks a month in Valpo. Now I think I used up 5 weeks, but I move around a little bit, and this is home, Valparaiso, Indiana. Great community, love it. Kids are older, 24, 22, so they're gone. Youngest daughter goes to University of Kentucky. Oldest daughter lives with us in Nashville. She's a nurse at Vanderbilt. So if you get all banged up or something's wrong, she might be poking you with needles. That's about all I have. I'm married, happily married. You ever ask someone how many years they've been happily married? And the answer, how many years you been married? Too many. Oh, fellas, ladies watching, it's Mother's Day uh, Sunday. Get your act together and go get some chocolate, flowers, booze, whatever she likes, right?
Amen to that. Amen to that. All right, Neil, ask him some more marketing questions.
Yeah,
I
so
need help understanding the markets more than I do now. So what do I need to understand?
I think there is a lot of growers out there that are really curious about the wheat market. They see they're sitting there languishing with no crop, but they continue to see just a dismal outlook. Just even I know the future has hit, like probably a 2 or 3 year high on like 27 crop, but just the crop that they have grown in the field, it looks like there's not a lot of pricing opportunities out there. Just kind of talk to the grower why we're continuing to see dismal markets in wheat.
Yeah, that's a great question. Wheat can really hurt your feelings because you can have a bad crop, whether my clients in North Dakota who grow the spring wheat, yourselves down. Yeah, Neil, are you in that area where you can grow, like where you could
Yeah,
harvest
no,
wheat and then throw in soybeans real quick?
yeah, we're in the double crop. We're
Yeah,
in the
okay.
double cropping region.
Right. And we just think of what you can do in your area and think how many places they could do that in the world.
Mm.
So wheat can be thrown in anywhere. And crops like corn and soybeans are very specific to certain regions. They've tried growing soybeans in Australia. They can't do it. They get a disease. They used to have disease troubles in South America, but nonetheless, corn's a very expensive crop to grow. Soybeans, not so much, but they don't grow well everywhere. And wheat is like a grass and it can grow anywhere. Just add a fertilizer. It's not cheap to grow. And I think that's what you'd be talking about is, we call it poverty grass at the exchange, but it takes us a pretty dollar to grow wheat. So you're growing wheat because you can't grow corn, take it out and throw in soybeans, right? You're growing wheat because you're rotation. And there's too many people in the world growing wheat. And as we move to more of these GLP drugs and everything else, where part of the reason cattle and everything are up so much is that people are shopping on the outside of the grocery store. You walk in, you see fruits, vegetables, meats, this, that. If you stay in the refrigerator section and that's all you eat, if you just walk in the grocery store and stay on the edges, you'll be so much healthier than if you go in the inside. And all the wheat is on the inside of the aisles. And I think there's a little war going on against wheat when
Mm.
it comes to these GLP drugs, which isn't just an American thing. These are worldwide drugs that are. I started on one a few months ago. I lost 20 pounds, and I am not the type of guy not to finish my meal. And I will be eating and just literally stop. It's made alcohol taste bad, and that one kind of bums me out. But it's a good thing. I mean, is this truly a miracle drug, or will I come back on the show in 5 years and have four noses? I don't know. But the doctor says it's better to lose the weight than die of the heart attack, right? And so those drugs are having an effect on wheat. And this isn't the first time this has happened. I remember when I was younger, I went to the Kansas City Board of Trade, and there was it was called the Atkins diet back then, which was similar, get rid of the bread stuff, and it really had an effect on wheat. And it's just a tough crop to make money on. So to our point, just because it made it not been break even, but it did rally several dollars off the low. When you get these
Mm.
price moves in wheat, you have to sell it because you need to know that there's someone growing wheat everywhere. Even if you're going to lose 25, 50 cents, it seems to be a pattern that the government's sending us money. Guys who grow wheat just received big checks a few months ago. They got the step up, top up payment, whatever the heck you want to call it. So the old excuse of I'm not going to sell it, I'm going to lose money. What are you going to do? Hold 5 years worth of crop and hope Russia invades Ukraine again? So when you see those prices that we had when Russia invaded Ukraine, it really, really, really distorts your perception of what a fair price for the crop is. And over the history of the Board of Trade trading corn and beans, I don't know the statistic off my head, but I'm just going to make it up for this show. I think over the history of the exchange, and these would be like not surveys, these would be truthful things you would get from University of Illinois or any of the big universities, that maybe over the history, growing corn you're allowed to make 10 cents, and growing soybeans you're allowed to make 25 per bushel, and growing wheat you're allowed to make this. Now those numbers don't work for anyone really. And I think where you're saying how is agriculture not falling apart is because the price of land is still trading record highs. I do a podcast once a month with my friend from Iowa. He's called the Land Talker, Mr. Jim Rothermick. And when he tells me some of these prices of land, I just wish I owned 10 acres. I mean, these prices in Iowa, the wealth on these I states, and even
Yep.
North Dakota. When I started going up to North Dakota, you could buy land for $2,000-$3,000 an acre. It's trading $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 an acre. Now I know clients in North Dakota who are struggling horribly
Mm.
from their cash balance sheet. But if you take that they own 2,000 acres times 9, they are not broke. You don't need to take off your shoes to say that they are worth tens of millions, but they probably couldn't write you a check right now for $25,000. So don't confuse that we're having a cash problem in agriculture. This is not 1980. This is nothing like it. Are people going broke? Yes. Are more people going broke than normal? Yes. But that's what this agriculture cycle does. That's why they call it farming. If it was easy, they'd call it easy. And I'd say, Neil, what do you do? And you go, I easy. You don't easy. You farm. It's been hard for 150 years. America's celebrating 250 years this year. 4th of July, happy birthday, America. Big hug and a kiss. Farming's hard. You don't need to come onto a podcast like this to find out farming's hard. If you think it's easy, go out, rent ground, buy equipment, go build a bin, and go figure out how to do this. The math will never make sense to enter farming in American agriculture again unless you're having help.
I totally agree. Um, so just for the average farmer out there, that maybe hasn't had a marketing plan in the past, but has suffered under these down markets for the last 3 or 4 years, and just put yourself in a position of that particular farmer hasn't had a plan, but really needs to start looking at how to develop a plan to market his crop going forward? What would you does he go about starting getting a plan together to successfully market his crop?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, one, you can mark it off the calendar, like, hey, it's springtime, I'm planting, I better be selling. Two, you can mark it off when you buy fertilizer. Hey, it's the fall of 26. I'm committing to be a farmer in 27. I'm buying fertilizer. I'm talking to my seed guy. I'm looking at prices on chemical. We're negotiating cash rents, etc. If you're going to commit to being farming, you have to know the numbers. And even when the numbers don't make sense, I would say you could mark it off the calendar, you could mark it off the price, you could do any combination of those things. What you can't do is say, I'm not going to sell the crop till it gets to where I break even. Your break even's like your weight. So my opinion to the farmer, and I get paid good money to go give speeches to tell them this one insulting thing, is that your cost production's your weight. And because you're overweight, that's not my problem. Because your wife insists she needs a new purse, it's not my problem. Because you have a new Ranger at your lake house is not my problem. The fact President Trump invaded Iran or whatever the heck we're doing over there, that's all of our problem, and it's going to become all of our problem. But there's things you can control and there's things you can't control. And what happens is when prices come down and farming contracts and cost production goes up, farming's like a giant, giant ship. You just can't turn and pivot that quickly. So I understand how and why farmers get in trouble, but those are the risk year after year after year. So to
Mhm.
be better at marketing, I would lean harder on crop insurance. I would educate yourself on crop insurance. If you chose to work with a professional, you can. You don't need to work with a broker to do what I do. Full disclosure, because I have to say disclosures all the time. Every single thing I do or do for a client, they could do for themselves. So that must mean they, one, why do people hire and pay us? Is because they're too busy and they don't want to deal with it. Two, they trust we know what we're doing. Or three, they've just given up and said, you could do better. That's the scariest one. Hey, I'm no good at this. You do it. Well, that's a lot of responsibility because I don't want to walk into someone's farm and say I'm the new CEO, right? You go make to grow a crop, you have to make 20 decisions. You're going to make 19 of them, and I'm going to tell you what day to farm or what day to sell. That's not really fair to me and my team. So it starts with education. And can you get better in a day, a week, a month? A little bit. But if you stay consistent, like working out or doing anything in life or podcasting, right? You guys know if you release a podcast once a week on a Wednesday at 3 o'clock, people will be looking for that. So if you're checking the markets every Sunday night, Monday morning, and Friday afternoon, and you could let the rest of the week go and you have your target orders in there. Couple things that make me sick to my stomach: cancel if close. Oh my God, wheat's rallying. X, what you will always find a broker, an analyst, or someone to blow smoke up you and tell you why it's going so much higher. I mean, remember those crazy people used to talk about we're going to $12 corn, $25 beans, $40 wheat because the moon lunar cycle. I mean, what's with these people? How are they even allowed to do that? Right? It's really sad. So if you're out there and be careful what religion you pick when it comes to brokers and analysts, because if you want a bullish person, you'll always be able to find it. Probably brokers and analysts run, for every four brokers, probably three of them are bullish, because when you tell farmers the truth, when you dazzle them with facts on how every time corn's $5 in the beginning of May, it's usually a lot lower in August, they don't want to hear that. But when you know statistics like that, when we are above crop insurance levels, you have to cover those gaps. Now, let's talk about last year. Last year, we set crop insurance level, and I could see how I can full blown give the farmer a pass for doing bad last year, except for one thing: they didn't mark any bushels for harvest, and they knew harvest was coming, and they knew they didn't have the storage for harvest bushels, and they acted like harvest was never going to come because they didn't like the price. But last year we established crop insurance in February, and all the brokers and analysts hit you with this statistic that 14 out of the last 15 years we take out that price. That was true. They didn't lie. But guess what? Now there's uh, now there's 2 out of 16 years we don't hit that price, and last year was one of them. So people dazzling you with facts and statistics on why you should wait. You could wait as long as you want, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen every single harvest. The futures tend to go down, the spreads start to widen out, and the basis goes wide because every single end user in the world at that point knows the crop's coming in, and they want to buy as much grain and hold it and store it, and all the things people like me should be teaching farmers, they know how to do really, really well. So the truth is, if you don't want to merchandise and your grain like a professional, the end user will do it for you and they will make all that profit. So when you see, whether it be the big four in the meat industry or the big four, the alphabet soup in the grain industry, when you see them come out with these record profits, they're coming out with those because they're better at buying it low than you are selling it high. And it's really that simple. That should piss off every viewer and listener and saying they're making a ton of money. I tell people, they'll say, "Hey, what do you think?" I go, "I'm short corn, I'm short beans. That's my own personal thing, and I don't even farm. So if I'm willing to sell futures or buy puts and I don't farm, what are you doing, people?" Based off of that, I thought crude oil would sell off. And so when I'm selling futures and options, I'll always tell my clients, I'm a little negative here. This is why. You should be really negative here because you now have to cover the gap between your
Mhm.
crop insurance and your higher futures price. But last year, note to the farmers that never happened, and that's their get out of jail free card. You can't say they had a chance last year. What would be a disaster this year is that we run up these prices and then we go back down really, really low at harvest. They go to their bankers, tell them they did a bad job, and then all of a sudden, they can't go tell the banker they never had a chance. So this year
Mhm.
gave you a chance in corn, beans, and wheat to sell it. Be very, very careful on getting forward sold on 27 bushels because we have no clue what fertilizer looks like. And reason I say that is corn was down a lot today. And on the very bell, I was a little nervous to make it here in time. I was starting to sell D's 27 corn for myself up a half cent on the day. And that very D's 27 corn, can't remember the price. It was about $5 even, if I'm remembering
Mhm.
right. It went to 5 or 501. That was like 6-7 cents lower earlier today. So
Mm.
that D27 corn gives me some hope, but it also comes at a high cost production. The original question was, what can a farmer do to get better? Educate themselves.
Mm.
You can pay people like me, but that won't, that's not enough. You actually need to go to the class, take the class. Not that you literally need to go to class, but you need to spend time doing it yourself. You're going to have to get better at this. And if you refuse to do it, someone else will do it for you. If you don't want to build a bin, you're going to build a bin every year, whether you build it on your property or you build it in town. If the co-op's going to build another bin with your money, nothing against co-ops, but that's how they make their money. We represent co-ops. We represent large farmers co-ops. And I'll tell you one thing, if you want a little bit of advice, the largest farmers in America who are great at marketing, their co-ops find it a little difficult to work with them because they're so good at what they do that the co-op can't get them. They almost get the co-ops or the someone on the rail. So when
Mm.
these guys are big and they have bins and understand basis and spreads and are well financed, the end user will call them and say, "I have a train coming. I need 400,000 bushels next month. Can you get the truck started?" Right? That's how great grain marketers market grain. The worst and saddest words in all of agriculture is, "What do you give me?" When a
Mm.
farmer looks right at the end user and says, "Hey, I got to sell some grain. I gotta pay some bills. What do you give me?" I mean, that's just giving up in life.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice, I think. I also am curious about like what your thoughts are, like the volatility we've seen, like a tweet, like whenever there's a news headline and you see the market making these humongous adjustments. And I think this is kind of a new phenomenon. I mean, not to say that headlines haven't always caused movement in the markets, but we're seeing this massive volatility now from like one tweet causes, like a 30-cent rally or fall in the market. What is that, the computers that are causing that humongous volatility, or what is what is
Well,
causing that?
no, that's a great question. Those are called HFTs, high frequency traders, and they uh, they do move markets. But there's a lot of people like me who click the mouse and do trades for their own account, and there's a lot of people like me who click the mouse and represent huge accounts like Goldman Sachs or the banks or international grain trading firms or China. China actively trades our markets. To say the markets moved big, yes, there are algorithms that look at true social posts and everything else. And the second they say it, they have certain parameters.
Mm.
Attack this, that, bomb, bomb, and whatever they probably would buy crude oil on that. But in the end, the market's much bigger than just a little blip in the pan, right?
Mm.
So when you see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of corn contracts trade, you'll hear farmers say, "Oh, that's just the guys in Chicago pushing it down." There's some big traders in Chicago in the world, but no one's bigger than the market. So when you see these new moves, as the markets are now open 24 hours, not even open 24 hours, let me tell you something. In the next few weeks, you're going to be able to look at your screen and trade Bitcoin at the CME Group on a Friday night, a Saturday morning, a Sunday morning. We are starting to shift to 24/7 trading in Bitcoin and crypto at the CME Group. And when I was younger, many years ago, and people would say, "Oh, that Board of Traders CME Group's just a casino," I used to get really upset, like we're talking about the casino in Waterloo, right? And I'd get really upset. Now I agree with them. Yes, we are a casino. Place your bet, right? You think corn's going up, place your bet. You think corn's too high, place your bet. Use this casino to do what you want. We are the largest sports book in the world, and they are actually starting to do sports betting. It's not like a something I just made up. Like I'm imagining it. And across the world, they do trade certain amounts of gold and silver and crude oil on over the exchange type traded funds, a little less regulated. But the markets are moving to this 24/7 thing. So we do hit pockets of illiquidity, especially if you are watching cattle. Today, cattle opened up and gapped open lower, and then they almost went limit down in live cattle and feeder cattle. And then they rallied back hard, then they broke hard. Those were probably all based on comments that President Trump was meeting with the Brazilian president, I want to say Lula, and who knows what deal we're going to cut there, right?
Mhm.
And when you look at how high, think about where the cattle markets come from. Did you know in 2020 that feeders almost traded under a buck? And now they're flirting with $4. I mean,
It's
in
nuts.
6 years. So when you talk about joking at the beginning of the show that you had to get a loan to buy your cattle, well, everyone does. I mean, no one's just going out there and saying, "I just had an extra couple million around here." I mean, a few people do, but yeah, you got to. This is a big money game, agriculture, and that's why originally I started talking about interest rates. Is that it's so important. Sure,
Mm.
you bought those cattle, you paid a lot, you think you're going to be able to sell them for more, but if you don't, and you sell them for less, you got a couple whacks there on the head. You got a couple knots. You didn't just fall once. You fell once and then hit your head again because you're going to take the loss in the cattle and you're going to take the loss in the interest rates. And you're going to say, I could have just been in Florida on an island and made money, right? Like if you had extra money, you could have just put it in a CD and made 4% instead of losing 14% or 24%. And that's what got agriculture in problem was this higher interest rate. It definitely low prices, high interest rate. Everyone knows the low prices. That's obvious. Very few people. Neil, how often do you hear people say these interest rates are getting us in trouble?
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
What you
I
got for us,
mean,
Josh? You got a question?
I want to know your opinion on where interest rates are going.
Oh, that's a good one. Well, they've went up
Speaking of,
recently.
if that's what we should be focusing more on, I mean, let's talk about the interest rates. I mean, we've got, I mean, a shakeup on the, and Fed chair position and so on and so forth. I mean, what's the administration going to? I mean, they want to push lower interest rates. We haven't seen it push higher yet. What's that mean on a farming side? Um,
Well, I
yeah.
want to correct you there a little bit. You said we
Okay.
haven't seen them push higher. We are higher. You
Okay.
don't need the Fed to move interest rates for interest rates to move.
Mm.
So everyday interest rates trade on the cash market and they trade in the futures market.
Mm.
Interest rates have exploded higher the last 2 months. What
Mm.
the Fed hasn't moved is the federal funds rate. When you get that text that says the Federal Reserve had a meeting and the federal funds rate is still at 4.25 or 3.75, that's what the Fed controls. They do not control the 30s, 10s, 5s. They can, and the last time they controlled that was QE1, QE2, QE3. So when you say, "Oh, well, interest rates haven't moved up," you're meaning, I know what you mean, and you're right. You mean the Fed funds rate hasn't moved up. But the long end of the bond, if Tommy Grisaffi goes and sells this house and goes to buy a house in Nashville, there's some sticker shock on that long end. And so when they say they are going to lower interest rates, you can't have 3-4% interest rates and then lower rates. It would I'm googling what Fed fund rates are right now. I just curious for myself. 3.5 to 3.75 is the Fed funds rate. That is what the Federal Reserve controls. But we are running hot on inflation, not 9% inflation like we had under the Biden administration when we went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and gave away all that money, which was fine. But not only did America give away all that money, all the countries gave away that money. That's what created the inflation to stop what from going to zero? The stock market, right? And so, real people, the less money you have, the more this higher interest rates hurting you because you're borrowing more and paying more. And if you only make 30 grand a year and a third or half that money goes to rent, and of course you're putting money on credit cards. If you're worth $1 billion, your money's in the stock market, it's in land, it's in other things. So when inflation happens, people who own assets continue to get rich, like farmers who own land are getting rich from the asset of the land, but they're losing their cash because the business they own, the actual farm, is losing money. So, what do I hope for interest rates? I would hope crude oil comes down and we get inflation under control. And the Fed, I don't think, will lower interest rates because other countries around the world right now, like the ECB and others, are actually considering raising rates. And when you see interest rates in Japan just hit 35-year highs, what would give America the right to lower rates? We're just going to spur more inflation. So if President Trump intimidated our new Fed chair and said you have to lower interest rates, which the Fed does not have to listen to the president at all, but just say wink and nod, you have to lower interest rates. Well, sure, that would be great for the short term, but it would create inflation for the long term.
Yeah.
And really, when you're wealthy, inflation doesn't bother you because every asset you own inflates. And yeah, you get to complain that you paid $5 for gas and $6 for diesel. You forget to let everyone know that your land just went up $250,000 in value last month based on the last auction. So people complain about interest rates, yet the people who benefit them the most are very wealthy. And if you understand math, you're like, it's not a problem. For
Yeah.
me, it's a problem. For me, who says, hey, I owe very little on this house. It's almost paid off. I want to move to Nashville, and this house is going to cost 2 or 3 times more. I cannot move from Valparaiso to Nashville, buy the same house, because I am not going to go get a mortgage and spend all that money on interest rates. And that's what's hurting the housing market, the car market, the as you guys know, you probably do a lot of podcasts on equipment and stuff. The equipment sales are just decimated here because the farmers tapped out of cash.
Yep.
And no one wants to. I don't think dealerships anymore have those signs that say 0% interest. That was a thing for 10 years. There is no
Yeah.
more free lunches. So that's kind of my little spew on interest rates. I hope they come down. They don't have to come down. The rest of the world's actually raising rates. Our interest rates 2 days ago hit multi-year highs on the 30-year.
Yeah.
And yes, the Fed's just sitting there doing nothing. But that's sometimes doing nothing, something, right? They're actually doing something by doing nothing, and this could get bad.
Yeah, I have an
Yeah.
unpopular opinion currently among a lot of my friends who are in business that if we lowered interest rates right now, given the macroeconomic climate of the world, I would actually think we'd have, specifically given this administration's very strong stance against the last administration, if we do not have a right-leaning, uh, administration in the next, cycle, well, they do have the ability to kick the can down the road of, well, we should just lower interest rates now, even if in 5 years we have to deal with it. Even though realistically, like we're saying, like, hey, inflation's kind of peaking back up right now, given everything, maybe we should halt lowering interest rates for the time being. So there's a bunch of opinions that can be had there and everything. And the reality of farming is that debt and interest are a thing everyone has to deal with. And I'd say it's not going to go anyway anytime soon. But I've been very adamant in starting our operation here in Iowa. Is like we need to be very cautious of our debt load and our interest load because cash is king. Continues to be king. Assets continue to be king. There's a reason that when you have a loan, it's called a liability. So that's all we have for you, Tommy, because we can talk about this all day. Where can people find you?
Yeah, they can go to the website, www.agbull.com. We have a new service we started offering 6 months ago. It's $25 a month, $250 a year. You don't have to be a brokerage client, but you had asked, how do we get more in the information news flow? We send out daily emails, text alerts, webinars. We have a bunch of premium contributors that we only send the information to paid subscribers. So if you want education piece, a lot of times people say, I like my broker, but I wish I could work with you. That's a very affordable way of doing it. So agbull.com, at agbullmedia on all social medias. Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thanks,
for being
Tommy.
with us. We
Awesome.
really enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right. Well, guys, that was a good interview.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean,
I still only understand like 5% of that, what happened.
I wanted to ask him, what's your opinion on a healthy interest rate given our current economic situation? But that's probably an unfair question. And here's the thing, and this is very unpopular. You said you have an unpopular opinion. I have an unpopular opinion that farmers think that we live in our own bubble, that this industry we're subject to is one and of its own, that the rest of the world doesn't operate this way. The rest of the world is subject to ebb and flows of markets just as well. I mean, interest rates, production and manufacturing issues, competition, input costs, labor. I mean, there's so many of these things that are, you take the word farm out and you put the same list of problems in there, and most people wouldn't be able to, figure out what industry you're necessarily in, or it would take a while for them to guess which one you're in.
Mm-hmm.
I thought with just talking about interest rates for a second, I've continued to say on the show that I felt like, inflation was one of the key reasons that farms have struggled the last several years. And the problem with, interest rates are high and they're burdensome, but the problem with lowering them right now is we're gonna, and I mean, he touched on it there. If we were to lower the interest rates, then we have a major inflation problem that will, come on. And
because then how much more can you pay? If you have
That's
lower
right.
interest costs, then I can pay another couple $100 for land.
Yeah. And you're going to have to, and all your inputs will follow them. And what we've seen is inputs have, even though land has increased, we've seen inputs increase at a faster rate than land has increased. So although land has rapidly increased in value, you see things like hydraulic hoses, tires, seed, fertilizer, fuel, right down the list, increased value at a faster rate. It's basically outpaced land.
Well, I was going to say, here's my question. Has our current inflationary climate, it is negatively affecting farm, but have we been able to band-aid it with the record high land prices? Like technically on paper, if you put up land as collateral, if you have owned land in your family, your collateral is worth 20 to 50% more than it was in 2019. And so, yes, we have record inflation, but I think a lot of guys have been able to pad that inflation and get by, being able to be more leveraged because they have on paper a higher net worth. They don't have cash, but they do have a higher net worth on paper. So when you go, Neil and I, when we go to our banker with stuff for our business, we both fill out personal financial statements. We have to provide all that info to the bank, and year over year, I'm not stacking cash in my bank account, but you know what? My net worth increases because I have a house and it is increasing inflationary. So technically, cash wise, we can lend way better than we used to even 2 years ago. Does that mean financially we're in any better position? No, not really, because I spend, everything else is more expensive than it used to be. So have we padded our economic agriculture crisis with high land prices? I've thought that for a long time. That's been my thought of, we've been able to band-aid our problems a little bit, but at what point do we see inflation and land prices kind of equal out a little more and we realize, oh, we're way over leveraged and no one has any cash?
Well, Tommy touched on it. He said that the reason this isn't the 80s is because of the rapid increase in farmland price. And that's exactly what he was talking about, was the increase in land prices has protected the farmer at some level against, against the rate of rise of input cost. But, we've continually seen that rate of rise in land price not keep up with the rate of cost and input increase, and I think if we continue down this path, which it looks like right now we will, I think we could get to a point where we will see, 80s type um, insolvencies. It's just because um, especially if we go into this 27 crop with fuel and fertilizer continuing to rally and the grain markets continuing to languish because there's still oversupply. I think I think that's a real possibility, especially if we were to, what are they talking about? 95 million acres of corn. If, worst case scenario, we have a I know it looks dry in the West right now, but what if it begins to rain in a month and we've got 95 million acres of corn out there, and then the corn, we post another record yield? I think 27 would look majorly bleak for a lot of farms if that was to happen. I hope that does not happen. I mean, I think the best case scenario for us as farmers right now, nobody wants to see drought, but it's difficult to weather through. But I mean, as farmer, um, with an upcoming crop to sell, we would probably be better off with drier weather than we would with adequate rainfall, just because we don't want to go into the 27 year um, with a humongous crop to market when we already have an oversupplied market.
Mm. Well, that leads me on to our last and final topic that can be as opinionated as we want. Speaking of farmland, we have a major competitor for farmland, which continues to drive up farmland prices around the country. Data centers, and the ever so large and massive and evil data center. That is the narrative of that is the villain of agriculture in 2026, minus crop markets and the war. Everyone is just, every single other post I see on social media is bag data centers, get out of here, get out of here. And 2 weeks ago, American Farm Bureau did put out a good piece on this, balancing data center growth with American agriculture. So, just a quick little overview, kind of just talking about planned data centers or data centers under construction. Roughly in the US, there are 5,000 data centers currently in construction. California has the second highest. Texas is way up there. Illinois is third. Ohio's pretty far up there. Virginia's pretty up there. Um, Tons of investment, absolutely crazy amounts of investment. The Farm Bureau article notes there's just a huge shortfall of the need. There is a high demand right now for data centers, and they highlight it in a way that I think most people in the agriculture industry are not really talking about it. Is we don't like to acknowledge this. Rural America is suffering, and data centers are bringing jobs to a lot of places right now. Like, there's a data center being built about an hour south here, and I have friends who are currently helping build that data center for Google, and they're making good money doing it. And there are hundreds of companies building this data center, and so it creates a duality, as the article highlights. Agriculture, first of all, uh, is dependent on data centers. I saw this funny meme earlier. It was like, "Oh, why are data center bad?" As someone asked on ChatGPT on their phone why data centers are bad. And then on top of that, it does bring some level of employment to the area. There is a need to maintain those data centers. They have to be constructed. It's a lot of money going into an area. On the flip side, highlighted in this article, data centers are also increasing the competition for agricultural land, water, and energy. So, what do we think? We for data centers? We against data centers? What pros and cons are there?
Think about the wind turbines out here in Kansas, the wind turbine push. I mean, it was wind turbines, and then it was solar farms, and now it's data centers. I mean, I hate the wind turbines. I don't know anybody that loves them, that has to deal with them or be around them. But it is a true fact. I mean, there were businesses and families that they built, quite a bit of wealth. They built quite a bit of a successful business off just servicing that industry.
Mhm.
I mean, co-op tire shops actually made money again because of all the added vehicles on gravel roads.
Mhm.
I mean, there was a lot of they came in, they graveled roads because they had to access it. They covered the cost on that thing. Everyone was hating on it. Oh man, the wind turbines are going up, so on and so forth. But man, that gravel road's really nice. I've never had gravel down this road before.
Mm.
So it's I don't have a great opinion on it because I've seen it. I've seen the positives and the negatives. Is it a Ted Turner approach that we talked about earlier? it's almost like you can't have one and the other. A small town America's dying. There's
Yeah.
not much left.
Mhm.
There's a cafe, a post office, and that's about it left.
If
And
you're lucky.
if you're lucky in so many of these towns,
Mhm.
it's just the way it is, especially out here. I say in the West, they're dead. Um, I love talking to people that are just still have memories of these booming small towns. Well, I asked them, why did that town boom? It was the railroad. You say, okay, well, was the railroad back then today's data center or the wind turbine industry?
Mm.
And because all the railroads coming through and they're taking land or whatever it might be. So is this something that's always been happening? We keep thinking as an industry or as people that this is a new challenge. There's really
Yeah.
nothing new.
I was
There's
gonna say,
nothing
yeah.
new under the sun. It's just something under a different guise. It's the evolution of an industry, of a civilization.
Yep.
So that's my thought on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we talked about it last week, but I've been reading a book on the largest cotton grower in America. His name is J.G. Boswell. Huge
Yeah.
operation in California, huge operation in Australia, Arizona, stuff. I mean, he's just huge. One of the largest landowners farms in the world. And 1930s, everyone's like, "Big ag's gonna get us all. Big ag's killing everyone. We got to support the small American farmer, 160-acre max limit." And I'm like, "Wow, that conversation has not changed for 100 years." And
No.
it's still going. And here's the reality.
Yes.
There continue to be some small farms that exist, and there continue to be the mega farms. Back then, farming 100,000 acres sounds an awful lot like today. Oh, margin pressure, squeeze, like the only people who can survive are the big guys. And then, you got public
High
figures just
interest.
high interest public figures just denouncing how awful big agriculture is and narratives and everything. And it's just so funny to see history continuing to repeat itself over and over again. It's like it's true. Like we in ag love to be these virtue signaling people. Like we don't want data centers. We want to support small town America. And it's like you're not supporting small town America. All your grocery shopping is at Walmart. You order everything on Amazon. You would rather shop at a chain. You would rather go to McDonald's than pay a little extra at the small town restaurant. Our consumer trends and our consumer habits directly have impacted rural America. And I would say whether that is the city people or the rural people, we're just as guilty. Amazon can get your package to the middle of nowhere in 2 days just as much as you can in a city. Like, and we all love it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it is super cool. And has that been part of the downfall of the small town hardware store, the small town appliance store, the small town grocer? 100%. And we've all participated in it, right? Oh, we just lost Neil. Bye, Neil. Good thing I have a backup stream. So, we'll see if he joins back in any second. But seriously, like I agree with this 100%. I actually have an unpopular opinion. Uh, just a joke. I actually don't believe this. But every time I see a big flat square cornfield, I'm like, wouldn't a data center just look so much better than a data center just right there? Like,
Oh,
come on, come on.
oh man, cue the
We've got most
comments.
of the Midwest cut up into 1 by 1 mile blocks, right? Just build 1 by 1 mile data centers. Easy. Right there. We can just pre-plan them. They can just be modular. Like the data center in Iowa can be the exact same as the one in Kansas because it's all a section of land, 640 acres. Get enough room for parking, enough room for power. But yeah, I think there's a world out there where we can coexist with data centers. And I really think the data center conversation will slow down. There will be regulation. And we will get to a point where data centers are more efficient. Yeah, lots of things going on. Neil, I'm gonna get you tuned back in here in a second. But overall, I don't hate data centers. I also don't love them. So, do you guys have any going up in Kansas?
Not that's really reached me about people mad about it yet. There might be, but it hasn't been a local talk at all.
Hold up, Neil. We still don't have you on the show yet. You got to be patient, sir. Josh, keep talking.
Okay. Yeah, I mean something being built around Kansas City. Neil was saying that there's data center going up there. It's hard to differentiate between a fulfillment center, a data center. I mean, there's so much just infrastructure being built right now, which is really interesting. I mean, it's what I guess watching the ebb and flow of markets, like you said, the consolidations. People get really upset about the consolidations of businesses, but I mean, how much of our own lives have we consolidated? You know, how many stores do you go to when you go grocery shopping? Well, I think most people would say as few as possible. Well, if that's the case, then how are you more different than someone consolidating in the seed industry? And that's I know that's going to piss people off, but I don't know. That's just a thought, the thought process that goes through my mind.
Yeah. All right, we got you back, Neil. Sorry, Neil's camera died because it did for some reason. Can't tell you why. Yeah. Neil, what do you think of data centers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those things, kind of like railroads or wind turbines or solar farms. Although I do think solar farms and wind turbines, are a little bit more bothersome just because they are spread out more over the landscape and they make the landscape a lot more ugly. Whereas a data center is kind of consolidated into one certain area, and it does affect those the people that whatever land it accesses there in that spot. You're just not going to see it on the horizon like you're going to see a wind turbine or a solar farm. But just it's one of those things where, yeah, I hate to see ag land taken into by anything just because there's not making more land, and it's definitely not beautiful to look at a data center.
Whoa,
But
whoa, whoa,
on the
whoa, whoa,
other
whoa. Hold
hand,
up. You're telling me there's nothing beautiful at a big, giant square box? Well, listen, I just told Josh while you were figuring out your camera, we've already carved the Midwest into 1 by 1 mile sections. It is perfect for box shaped things like data centers and warehouses.
although I will agree that we are divided into sections, it definitely, it's not as beautiful as looking at a prairie or a forest or even a cornfield or a wheat field for that matter. On the other hand, I mean, we're sitting here on a live show doing things that require data centers
Yeah.
for us to use. So, it's a give and take. We should probably consolidate them more and think about the consequences of them long term, because at some point we're probably going to be able to condense the amount of uh, just the ability to condense data as we increase in technology is going to be greater. And then say we have a couple thousand data centers and we only need 100 of them. We've destroyed that land for multiple generations, so I, but what's the answer to it? I don't
I
know.
don't know. Okay, the amount of projected farmland that will be taken up by data centers is like 0.15% across the next like 5 to 10 year term, which is less than 1%, which also I would still say a data center is way less land intensive than the development already happening. Like we can point at data centers and be mad. One data center is like maybe a tenth of the size of a suburban neighborhood in a sprawling city. Like, just think about how much land's taken up by suburbia. It's not even close. So we can like point at data centers and make them the bad guy. We're gonna figure it out. Elon Musk says we're gonna put them in space. I believe him. That's the craziest part about all this. But like, I see a world in the next
Has
20
he been
years.
wrong yet?
His timelines are always a little off, but he does seem to figure it out somehow. Like
Yeah.
I and give him credit where credit is due. Like the guy he started a company to launch rockets into space, and then he said, "I'm gonna land them." And then everyone said, "You're crazy. That's never gonna happen." And you know what he did? He landed a 30-foot tall building that's a rocket. Like that's So when he says we'll put data centers in space, I'm like, it might be 20 years. I will see it in my lifetime though. So I think there's a lot of things like we're going to be more efficient. We can also build things taller. I think we forget that. Like we can build things into the sky. It's just cheaper to build them wide. So maybe some regulation will come out. It's like, hey, like, can we reduce over like can your footprint of the data center be one size, but can you invest more in vertical infrastructure? And every state wants data centers right now because they're good for the economy. So there's also that to factor. Like at the state level, data centers bring money into communities, it brings jobs, it brings tax revenue in. So the states really do want this. And that's the craziest part. A couple of our commenters did mention like we should just put them on federally owned lands and put them there. And I'm like, well, yeah, but then the ranchers who lease federally owned land is going to be mad. Like someone's going to be mad. I agree. There's plenty of desert out there that we could put these things in, but then you have cooling and all these different things. So there's a lot of nuance in this conversation. We don't need to spend all day on that. I do want to touch a little bit on AgriFinancial. This show is brought to you by AgriFinancial, your go-to for agricultural loaning. Just a little note, one of our commenters asked some more information. Go to cgb-agfi.com to learn more, but AgFi exists to make ag lending easier, and that's why Neil and I chose them as a sponsor. Like, this was not a like, oh, they came to us out of the blue. Like, no, we found them. We're like, we want them to be our sponsor. So basically, just imagine your traditional lending process, your traditional loan process, but better custom fit to agriculture. Not, hey, like, I work with not like a semi-ag bank, but they treat me like a small business. Very different than what you would go through if you're leasing land or you're buying a tractor or you're buying cattle. Like, there's a lot of things that go into that a traditional banker wouldn't. So if you need any sort of loan like that, go check out their website, click the link in our description, scan the QR code that's on the screen, or just go to that website. It's in the top left corner of your screen. That is all we have. There's plenty of things we could talk about. Josh, thank you for joining today. Where can people find you?
I would say personally, I'm heaviest on Instagram, j.pretzer. On Instagram, I put a lot of life out, a lot of my life on Instagram. I will put on there how I had to break my office door window to get back be on this on time.
Yeah, I was like texting Josh and Neil right before the show, like, guys, we start in like 4 minutes. Like, where are you guys at? Like, and they're not like ready and set up and everything. And Josh is like, I'm breaking into my office.
Yeah. Well, I locked the door so my boys wouldn't come in here. I told my wife, said, hey, I'm busy. Keep the boys out in the yard. So, but just in case, my 3-year-old is notorious for going and finding dad. So I go and I lock the door. We'll come to find out it locks the outside handle, but the inside is free ranging. So I go open the door, go out, shut it, come back. It's locked. I'm like, decisions must be made. I can't miss this. So I I'm like, what would they do in the movies? I'm going to put Gorilla Tape over this piece and I'm going to hit it with a hammer. So, and I hit it with a hammer. Interestingly enough, the Gorilla Tape piece held together and everything else shattered. Which, I mean, that's, so yeah. So I guess if you want to see it, you can go see my Instagram. I do a little bit on TikTok.
Josh, I just want to say thank you for smashing your window to make it to the live show on time. We could have improvised. I was actually more worried about Neil not being on time. There was never a thought in my mind. And I'm right to think that because you broke your freaking window to come to the live show.
Listen, if you want
that means a lot, Josh.
If you want to get Pella Windows as a sponsor, just let me know. But no, I guess on the singular side,
I'm gonna send you a hat for sure. I'm gonna at least give you a hat for your time.
I was gonna say send a hat and I'll wear it on the next podcast. But Singular Agronomics, we really strive to be an education based. Our foundation is education in agriculture. We try to do a good job of interviewing people, having real life conversations about agronomy, a lot about agronomy, a lot about, a broad range of topics, whether it's seed genetics, machinery, things of that nature. But trying to take and educate ourselves as farmers to make better decisions on the farm. Have an answer for the why. Be able to ask the why and then confidently have the answer that is in front. Like, this is why I'm doing this. Just being a more intentional steward of the land, steward of what we do, our operations, our families. I've done conversations with my landlords. How does that relationship work? How does it work with a sibling? I had my brother on. He's off the farm, and we had a conversation about that. How's that look between siblings? Then we talk about agronomy. We've talked about, the fertilizer industry. We talk about a lot of different things, but podcast, I think we've got done 130 some now. Anyway, I've been doing it for 4 years. Yeah, we stuck in there, but
that makes you like the top 0.01% of podcasters. Just so you know, like, no one commits that.
Well, thank you.
Good job.
We're farmers, man. We're stubborn, but anyway, so yeah, meeting you guys was just honestly a highlight, kind of a bucket list thing, and we literally ran into each other at Commodity. Anyway, had seen each other a little bit before, but kind of got back in touch more after commodity and after. And yeah, just really appreciate the opportunity for this very much.
It's our
Same.
pleasure, Josh. So,
Yep.
all right, we're going to wrap up the show. Once again, the show is brought to you by Agri Financial. You can find them at cgb-agfi.com. Remember, all these opinions are our own and do not represent Agri Financial. They're a great sponsor. Go check them out. We've really enjoyed working with them. See you next time. You can find this as a full podcast on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. Share with your friends, like and subscribe.